Let's go ahead and get started. It's great to see all of you, to see some familiar faces and see some new faces. This is, for me, and I think I speak for all of us, this is like one of the favorite parts of our job is to be able to interact with you all. So it's just great to have you all here. So thank you for being here for this meeting about the conference committees. To find out more, if you want to volunteer for them. And to get started, we'll introduce ourselves, and then we'll dive into some discussion and have a few slides that we'll go through. So I'm Judith Brower. I'm Associate Director here at NISTS. And related to the conference, I work with our sponsors, I work with the awards program, and I work with the Networking and Engagement Committee. And one thing I like about summer is ice cream. And I do also like fresh fruit. So I think that's a good balance, right? Like the healthy and the not so healthy. But those are two things I've been enjoying this summer. So I'll pass it on to Emily to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name's Emily. And Judith, I think you could go best of both worlds and have fresh fruit in the ice cream. It's like strawberry and peach season. So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. Hi, I'm Emily, and I'm an assistant director here at NISTS. And sorry, I was talking to Joe in the back chat, so I didn't even hear what the instructions were. I do the conference. I do the conference. That's my job every day. And this also is one of my favorite parts, actually talking to the professionals out there doing the work on the day-to-day basis. So I'm thrilled to see you. We have some familiar faces in here, so I'm super happy that you've joined us today. And those who are watching the recording, no worries. We'll meet you soon, and we'll be excited to see you when we see you. And I'm super excited because I'm going to turn it over to someone who y'all have never met. I'm going to put money on it right now. You've never met our newest team member, Joe Risby. He joined us over the summer back in May. He's our program coordinator, so I'm super happy that he's on board with us, and I'm going to toss it to him to introduce himself.
Oh man, what an introduction. So, hey everybody, hey, I'm Joe, program coordinator. I'm the behind the scenes guy, just helping coordinate things, with the budget, administration. I just got my P card. It's been a journey, but I got it. So wish me luck with that. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to see y'all faces. And I look forward to getting to know y'all one-on-one. And I'm gonna toss it up to our new employee, Carly. Carly, she's our new student employee. She just joined us last week. My first hire, so I'm really proud of that. And she is amazing. So I'm gonna toss the ball to her and let her introduce y'all to herself. Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, so this is my second week, so I'm still fairly new. So I'm the student assistant here, so I just kind of try to help out in any way I can. So I'm really excited to be on the Zoom and see how everything works. And they've heard me all talk about the movies this week, so that's my favorite thing right now is all the movies that are coming out. I've already seen Barbie, and I really need to see Oppenheimer soon, so...
And I'll just add something Carly didn't mention about herself is she's a transfer student.
Yes, I am.
We prefer to hire transfer students when we can. But we thought this would be a good way for her to sort of start to wrap her head around what in the world we do at NISTS and what a conference is kind of like.
All right. Well, we are ready to dive in. And I will just, a quick reminder to make sure you're on mute before we get started. And let's see, I am going to share my screen. So, all right. Joe, can you give me a thumbs up? Does that look good? Okay, great, thank you. All right, well, as I mentioned, we are here to talk about the conference committees for NISTS 2024. Can you believe it? It's around the corner. And it will be, the dates are listed here, February 21st to 23rd in St. Louis. Just a quick note, it's in person only this year. And we are also, you may have heard about our virtual online community. So we're looking forward to developing opportunities for virtual interactions there, but the conference this year will be in person in St. Louis. let's see, so we are going to just go over, tell you a little bit about each committee, and then at the end we'll have questions, but feel free to drop your questions in the chat or raise your hand if you have a question as we go along. And let's get started.
Okay, so everybody, just to give you a quick overview of the types of volunteer opportunities we have. You've probably seen this in the email, you saw it on the website, but just to be sure that everybody's all on the same page, there are 3 primary ways you can get involved with our conference planning. And the first is a committee, and that's what we're here to talk about today, the conference committees. And we'll go into detail about each of those in just a moment. But there are also opportunities to be a proposal reviewer or on-site support. So our goal in telling you this is that if today, by the end of the meeting, you're like, whoa, 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 hold up, never mind, not for me, totally fine, no worries. There are still a couple of other opportunities that you could get involved with, and those are perfectly fine. And they're a little bit shorter time commitments as well. So sometimes folks like that. So we want you to find the right fit. So just FYI, as a proposal reviewer, you can help us read and score all of the proposals that we get throughout the summer. So as you've probably seen, the call for proposals is open through a little bit the middle of September. Everybody turns their proposal in the day before, so we won't know how many we get until literally the day before it closes. But a couple of days after that closes, I'll then turn around and send all of the proposals out to our reviewers. We assign about 5 per person, depending on the volume that we receive overall. And so it's really just like a couple-hour time commitment. You use the assessment evaluation forms that we provide you, you do it online, and then you just grade and assess. And really our goal in having you read those is to give us your comments, give us your feedback. There's a rubric, so you'll assign a numerical value to the different areas, but we really depend on you to write a little bit about each proposal so that we can understand what it felt like for you to read it and be like, is this going to help? Is it not? Is it useful? Is it interesting? That kind of thing. The other primary option is our on-site support role. Now, these are always a little bit TBD in the months leading up to the event. So almost certainly we're going to need people on board there with us in St. Louis to be the greeters, the welcomers, the directioners, what's that called? The cross guards? I don't know what it's called in a hotel thing, but to point people in the right spot, or to even be assigned as sort of room monitors or room assistants. You'll be in the session with presenters and kind of help them stay on track, make sure they've got the right time and hand out materials, that kind of thing. So on-site support, we don't really start advertising that till about January. That's when we have a really solid idea of exactly who we need. And so we will open an invitation to apply for that role. So you would kind of watch our email mailing list to see if that's something you're interested in. And then we'll do an onboarding. We're not going to throw anybody in cold. Like, we will do an onboarding, make sure expectations are clear, make sure you can pick the times that work best for you. So obviously you have to be able to go to St. Louis and join us at that event to fill that role. But proposal reviewers, you can do that whether you're going to be joining us or not. It's a great way to contribute your input and expertise, even if you know you can't join us in St. Louis. So more information about both of those, all 3 of the roles, are on the website, which we'll pop the link in the chat there in just a minute. But please know that this is not an either or situation. If you decide, I want to do it all, I've got plenty of spare time. Obviously, that no one ever in higher ed. But if you wanted to do more than one role, that's totally fine. You can be a part of a conference committee, and you can be a proposal reviewer, or you can also be on-site support. So it's up to you. You do the thing that fits you best. We'd be happy to have you in any of those roles. And Judith, I think you're driving the slides if you want to go on to the next one. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the 3 specific committees that we have and are trying to fill. So there's curriculum planning, local arrangements, and networking and engagement. And these are committees that we've had for a couple of years now. So this is our 3rd attempt at doing these, and we're getting a little better every year and figuring out what works and what doesn't. But something I want to make really, really clear is that these are meant to be working groups. So in other words, for these committees specifically, that means you can expect to be actively engaged and doing a little bit of homework between meetings. And the type and a degree to which that homework is going to eat up your time, that really depends on the committee itself. But it is a role where you have to be willing, you've got a little room in your calendar, you can spend some time doing stuff for the committee in between meetings. In general, each committee meets once a month or so, but each committee will set its own meeting schedule and choose the day and the time that works best for everybody. And in some situations, just due to the nature of the work, we may need a couple of extra meetings here and there to really dig into the details and get stuff decided. So again, it'll sort of get to the committee itself, but about once a month at minimum, maybe more, particularly in the weeks leading up to the conference. And this is an appointment through at least May 2024. So when you sign on and we say, welcome to the team, we'll get started in September, and then we'll meet every month all the way through May 2024. I will add a little caveat to that for the curriculum committee. May 2024 does not work for me. I will need curriculum planning meeting. I have to meet with people in May, June, and July, and probably August, because that's just the nature of this particular work. That's when the most stuff is happening behind the scenes. So just a small exception there. In general, you'll be done by May 2024, unless you're on the curriculum committee. Then I could really use your input in the summer as well. Okay, so we're gonna pop this link in the chat, but you can read. Oh, sorry, Jip, go ahead to the next slide. This description is online. You've probably already read it, but if not, we'll pop the link in the chat so that you can access that document. It's just on the Volunteer Opportunities webpage. But this just tells you a little bit about what to expect from each committee, the types of work that you would be doing. Now, this is just a starting point. It's a baseline to get us going. We want these to be really generative groups. So if there's something in particular that you are desperate to do, we want to help you do that and give you a path to get it done. So this is just sort of an at minimum what you can expect type of worksheet, and then you could potentially build on other rules to that as well, depending on the needs of your group and sort of what you decide your overall goals are. So that okay, I'll put the link, no problem. 1 second. Hopefully this is the right one. Judith, is it the right link?
I believe so, yes.
We'll test it. Okay, there it goes. Good.
And there's just a little bit of a lag changing this with the going to the next slide. So let's see. Here we go. All right. Now diving into the committee logistics. Each group will consist of around 6 to 10 people. We found that's a good size just for getting things done, and also just for scheduling a meeting among that number of people. Each committee will have a chairperson or co-chair. It could be, one person or 2 people working together, and their main task will be to schedule and facilitate the meetings. Make sure someone is taking notes at the meetings for folks who may not be, who may miss a meeting, and just to keep a record of things, and just to make sure things are moving along and that the key tasks get done. And they will be the main communication with one of us. Each committee will have an NISTS staff liaison. So we will be in touch with the committee chair. We will, depending on the committee and where it is in the process, we will be at meetings, or we may not make every meeting, but we'll stay in touch and just provide guidance and support throughout the process, answer your questions. Travel to St. Louis is not required, although for some of the committees, we will need some of the people on the committee to be there in person, like local arrangements that helps coordinate registration, for example, and networking and engagement. We usually need at least a couple people on site, but don't let that stop you if you think you might not be able to come. And when you fill out the interest form, you can choose whether you are whether you can come or not, or if you're not sure, you just mark that on the interest form.
Okay, so I know we're throwing a lot of information at you. I do want to pause just in case there are super urgent questions. Happy to address that, but know that at the end, we're going to open the floor to questions and discussion as well. So does anybody need me to stop for anything right at this moment, or we could feel okay to dive into the details of each specific committee? Okay, seeing no hands, which if you were me is because you can never remember how to find it, we're going to move on and save your questions for just a minute. We'll get to them just here shortly. So for curriculum planning, here are kind of the 3 top things looking for this committee to work on. But again, we may or may not make up other stuff for ourselves to do, because this committee is all about learning. And so we are really focused on what is the best learning experience going to look like for attendees in St. Louis. That's prepping them before, what they're doing during, and then what they're going to do after the conference, so that when they go back to their home campus or organization, they can do something with the information they've learned. We really want the conference to be practical and applicable. So that's kind of key focus, the lens through which this committee does their work. So there are a couple of ways in particular that you would assist me. I do the curriculum planning committee. So first thing is to co-create the schedule and learning outcomes for the event. So there's the daily schedule. We're going to do these sessions on this day and those sessions on that day. Like we literally sit down and say, what is the best outline for these sessions? What order should they go in? How long should they be? How many sessions per day can our brains handle? Like those are the type of logistics scheduling questions that this group will tackle and literally build the schedule together from what's the best start time? What's the best end time? How does that work with our hotel contract? Key consideration there, and make sure that everything stays aligned. The learning outcomes, I gave you a little sneak peek of just sort of basically what I hope everybody achieves. We want them to be able to take something home with them that they can do at their home campus, but we do want to go a little bit deeper than that with some learning outcomes. What are we really hoping people are thinking about and feeling as they experience the conference, particularly as it relates to this year's conference theme? The next thing we do is refresh the conference workbook. And most likely this will be sort of subgroup activity. But one of the things we offer, which I'll be honest, I don't know if other conferences are doing this as regularly as we are, but we make a concerted effort to offer a conference workbook. If you attended the conference previously, perhaps you saw that. If you're brand new to our conference, maybe you haven't seen that yet, but it's a workbook that guides folks through sort of a set of reflection questions to get them ready for the learning experience. And then at the end, it ends with an action plan so that they can take that information, really write it out, get it going. And it's actually a really awesome tool to take back to their supervisors as well, to say, look at all the things I learned. That was money well spent. A double-edged sword, then they'll be like, okay, we'll go do that program. So, we'll take it with a grain of salt, but refreshing that conference workbook, and in fact, leading the conference takeaways session. If the logistics committee, the curriculum planning committee decides that this is the best session we want to do, we want to repeat the conference takeaways session, then whoever works on the workbook will most likely be a facilitator of that. We call it a featured session or a plenary session where everybody goes to that session at the end. And then, of course, the last thing is facilitate featured sessions. Now, that word facilitate's a little tricky, so let me clarify what I mean there. We think of featured sessions as like the keynote, the panel plenaries, anything that happens in the ballroom that everybody's supposed to go to. That's what we consider a featured session. And so when I say facilitate, it means a couple things. It's not like you up on stage, unless you just want to. I'd be open to that discussion. It's not you on stage necessarily, but we would need your help on the back end of that, coordinating with the presenters, being sure they're clear on what we're looking for, helping them think through the learning outcomes, helping them become familiar with our conference and what the sort of feel of our event is and what type of information folks are looking for. That's what I mean by facilitate. It's that more of the back end, get all on the same page, but then also introduce them. So you could be on the podium for just a moment, introducing all of the featured sessions at the event. So hopefully that makes sense. I'll happy to answer any questions about that later, but that's curriculum planning in a nutshell. And again, that's the baseline. So we may or may not make up extra stuff for ourselves to do.
Well, it's me. Hey, everybody. Back again. I'll be your liaison for your local arrangements committee, aka the hospitality team. So the big part about it, I think I was specifically chose to do this because I'm that guy that likes to find restaurants and fun things to do on the weekends or even on a Tuesday. I went to this Italian restaurant last night where they cook the food in front of you. Pretty cool. But either way, so this committee is like, hey, we're going to find fun things to do in St. Louis. We need to find the best restaurants that, hey, what everybody would enjoy. And just really try to say, hey, St. Louis, we are here. We're a part of the community this weekend, and we want to incorporate St. Louis with us. So our job is to try to coordinate activities and things to make sure everybody feels welcome and home and partnership with the local people in town. So pretty much, hey, this is a fun. All committees are fun, but hey, we're looking for people that are interested in finding fun things to do. We're going to have meetings, leading up to the conference, just discussing our different game plans, our different ideas, and try to get creative of what things that we could do. So I look forward to anybody that's interested in joining the committee. Feel free. My email is somewhere on the website. I'll drop in the chat as well if you have any further questions, and look forward to working with everybody.
Thanks, Joe. And we may have some friendly competition because I think the networking and engagement committee is fun. And to back that up, I will say the committee members over the past couple of years have actually changed the name of this committee to the Networking and Fun Times Committee. So I don't know, we might have some friendly competition there, Joe, of who's more fun. But actually, we work together with local arrangements to plan things like meals that people can go out together. So we have Joe's group will research the restaurants, and then we'll plan in the schedule a time for folks to sign up for meals would be one example of how we work together. But to back up a little bit, the focus of this group is really, it is also learning and through connecting with other people, because we know that that's an important part of learning and just what we get out of conferences. And I don't know if you all have been at a conference where maybe you're standing in line to get a cup of coffee or waiting for a session to start, and you just happen to start talking to the person next to you, and it turns out they have an answer to a question you've been thinking about. So that's definitely happened to me, and we really just want to try to facilitate those kind of opportunities and make them not just left up to chance, which happens sometimes, and that's great, but we want to just make them more probable by planning ahead. And so one way to look at this is to think of one-on-one interactions, and then in smaller groups, and then in larger groups. So over the past couple of years, the committee members created a great program, and we've kind of refined it a little, called Conference Connect. And so that's an opportunity for attendees to get paired up ahead of time with somebody else who's going to the conference. And if they want to, they can connect before the conference, they can connect during the conference. It's really up to them how much they interact, but it's just a chance to get to know somebody one-on-one. And then, like I mentioned, another key thing is the meals. And we think about people who may be new to NISTS or maybe attending alone, especially. Where it's just nice to already have a way to just go to a meal that's already planned at a restaurant to meet up with other folks from the conference. Let's see what else. The other thing is, for those of you who've been to our conference, we use a conference app, and so this. Folks from this committee are a lot of times on the conference app, keeping the conversation going, and even ahead of time sharing maybe some on social media tips about networking at the conference. So again, just all about connecting with other people at the conference. So now I will turn it back to Emily, who will talk about next steps and timelines.
So your main next steps, the one that's not reflected here, is to think to yourself, does this sound like a good fit for me? Yes or no? And then if the answer is yes, your next step is. You guys, thanks for telling me I was muted. I was muted. It was so good. I made like 7 jokes. I'm kidding. I didn't. Okay, so the next steps are pretty straightforward. The first thing you want to do is decide, is this a good fit for me? Yes or no. If the answer is yes, I've put the link to the actual interest form in the chat there. So fill that out. The deadline is August the 4th. So that's next Friday. We'll take a look at that and decide who. Really, we're just looking for best fit and sort of even split amongst the committee. So we'll take a look at that, and we'll make some decisions mid to late August and alert you via email if we'd like to invite you to the committee or not. There very well may be some additional information we need from you, so be sure you keep an eye out for emails from us if there's something extra we need to add to your interest form. I say that because some of these groups have way more interest than others. And so we want to make sure we find the right fit for you. We don't want to turn anybody away if we don't have to. We want to plug you in if it feels like something you're really, really interested in. So we'll send an email, obviously mid to late August. That's a tricky time of year. We get that. We know classes is starting probably for most of you on your campuses. So be really mindful of that. We will send out some kind of doodle. Everybody loves a good doodle. We'll pick the best date for that first meeting via doodle, most likely. Hold that in early September. And then the committees as groups will determine sort of moving forward what the best sort of set day and time is for their regular meeting so that everybody can block off on their calendars accordingly. But next step's pretty straightforward. Apply, commit, convene, and have a ton of fun doing it and meeting people across the country. So that's kind of the committees in a nutshell. We want to now open the floor to your questions, help you think through, is this right? Is it not? What did we not explain well? Happy to reiterate any of those things. So if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand or unmute and let us know. This is your time. We want to hear from you and hear what is sounding most appealing to you or not. So I'll open the floor to whoever has questions. And Bonnie, I saw you first, so go for it.
And I didn't know if this was just a talk out event or not. So just a quick question. I missed the very, very beginning and I apologize for that. I got pulled all over. Can you tell me generally or in a quick, how many I thought I heard you say it wraps up by May. Would these be monthly get-togethers as often as the group decides? I know that's what you're saying right at the beginning. Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Absolutely, no problem, Bonnie. And I'd like to choose D, all of the above. So
okay.
Yes, in general, and I lost where you, oh, there you are. In general, you're going to meet once per month, but there very well may be an occasion, particularly in the weeks leading up to the conference, that whatever subgroup you're assigned to needs to meet a little bit more regularly to prep. So a little bit of flexibility will be helpful there. That May 24 deadline is pretty solid for the local arrangements and networking and engagement committees. But if you're interested in the curriculum planning committee, do know that that one's going to go all the way through the summer, because that's when I do the most of my work, and I would love feedback during that particular time. So did that help, Bonnie?
Yes, that was fine. Thank you.
I'll just chime in for the networking committee. The rhythm that's tended to work the past couple of years is to kind of front load the meetings, obviously understanding that August and September are busy times. We have deadlines. You can help me remember, Emily, but it's kind of like when we open registration. So maybe October, end of October, beginning November, we need to be able to put descriptions of anything we're doing on the web and add anything to the schedule. And then we have to make sure we have everything for the conference app. So most of that work is kind of wrapped up before Thanksgiving, I would say. And then it's just getting closer to the conference, thinking about the logistics of implementing anything and who might be on site. So.
Hi, this is Tanita.
Hi, Tanita.
Hi, I'm sorry, I joined it late as well. So I see that it's being recorded. Are you going to resend the link out so I can listen to it and catch up?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I see Andrea. We can go to you next.
Yes, hi. I work here in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma Christian University, and my question would be, how much can we participate on the conference? Because I'm pretty new to transfers anyway, but I would like to know, being involved in, I mean, any of the three committees is interesting, but I'm curious to know what would it look like as far as participating in that conference.
I can start, and Emily, you can chime in. I think in some cases, I mean, it's helpful if you've had experience. Have you had experience just even attending other conferences?
As far as transfer, no, other conferences.
Not transfer, but just any higher ed in general?
Yes.
Okay, well, I mean, I think you bring a valuable perspective because we have folks that are new to transfer and we have folks that are even new to coming to conferences. So I know definitely for networking engagement, I think that we are we would value that perspective. You could, there's also an opportunity if you didn't want to be fully involved with the whole committee, we're always glad to have people that we can run ideas by. But I don't know, what do you think, Emily?
Yeah, I want to make sure, Andrea, that I understand your question correctly. So do you mean when the conference rolls around and we're all in St. Louis, what does your day-to-day experience look like, even if you participated in a committee?
Exactly.
Yeah, I am happy to report that in general, you just essentially become a conference attendee. It is there for you to engage in whichever parts of the conference you want. And so you can go to as many sessions or as few sessions as you need to. It just sort of depends on what you as a committee member volunteer to do at the conference. And so all of those decisions would be up to you. I will say that local arrangements will have a little bit more stringent requirements there, because if you're welcoming people or you're a room monitor or something like that, you would need to go where you're assigned. But networking engagement, you still go to all the sessions, but you may also just have an add-on on top of that, of then to maybe facilitate a conversation somewhere, or to attend one of the dinners with a group. Curriculum planning, if you're part of that committee, as I mentioned, you may well be leading the conference takeaways session if that's what you volunteered to do, or you may be introducing the keynote speaker at the podium on the stage. But it's all voluntary. We're not, well, for the most part, unless we're desperate, we're not going to point to anybody and be like, Andrea, you're it, go do. You would volunteer and sort of manage your time as it feels best for you. So I hope I explained that okay. I do know that we've got some previous conference committee members on the call, so if anybody else wants to add on to that, you may have a different perspective than I do, so please feel free to unmute yourself and add on if you would like.
I also would ask a follow-up question. How much writing, like you were mentioning, the networking, I think, is to be very involved in the media and things like that. What much knowledge do you have to have for the networking?
I would say it's a group effort, right? And so that's one of the really cool things about it. And if somebody's like, hey, I manage social media at my school, so I can write a great social media post, then we might work together to say, hey, okay, here's what we want to be included, and that person writes it. And then we also, any of the descriptions or anything as staff, we also help like proof and edit and that kind of thing. So.
Cool. Thank you.
These are great questions. Anybody else have something that come to mind?
And or any committee members that former committee members that want to chime in anything about your experience.
Okay, so I don't know if there are any 80s kids out there. Oh yeah, Kathy, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm sorry. And you might have said this already. I'm one of those 80s kids that probably wasn't paying good enough attention. When will we submit our interest form that says, yes, I want to be part of this committee. Then when will you let us know? Did you say the beginning of August, or that's when the form is due? When will you let us know what committee we're on, if any?
Yep, we need about a week to think through all of that and collaborate and assign folks. So mid-August would be the earliest. That's really our target, but it could be third. I don't know if y'all know this, but sometimes in our jobs, things come out of left field and it completely takes us off our task. And we're like, what? So we're really aiming for mid-August, but it could be that third week of August.
Hey, Emily, I'll jump in
Melissa.
real quick.
Okay.
And just say my experience has been great on the committees. I've done the program proposal things twice, and then I was on the logistics with you last year. And my opinion on the whole thing is you get out of it what you put into it. And of course, we all have busy lives in higher ed. And if you miss a meeting, reach out to your group and see and catch up. I know our group took notes, so those were always out there on in a Google folder that we could reach out and do. So our committee did that last year. And, sometimes you don't really know a whole lot of information, but it's like a working group and you're bouncing ideas off everybody. So it's really neat to see everybody's experience and what they bring to the table, because you may think of something completely different that is what we actually need. And so I love the working groups and meeting the people all across everywhere. Those connections, will stick with you forever.
Thank you for that.
All right, any other questions? I'll wait just a minute and just say that you are welcome to reach out to us. I put my email, and I know Joe had put his email in the chat, and you can always, we have a general email of nists@ung.edu that you can always contact us that way with any questions, but be sure to check out those links, the committee descriptions, and just let us know if you have any questions.
Yeah, I was going to say before, 80s kids, the power is yours. Anybody get it? Captain Planet. The power is yours. So choose to apply or not apply, whatever works for you. The proposal reviewer link is on the Volunteer Opportunities webpage if you decide that's a better fit for you. Or of course, we've got the link to the interest form. So we would be super excited to work with you if it's a good fit. And don't hesitate to reach out, as Joe and Judith have said. So thank you so much for your time. We'll hang on the call so that if you don't want to talk in front of lots of people, but you want to talk in front of a few people, we'll hang on for a few minutes. So please feel free if you want to have additional conversation.
Thank you all
Thanks
for
for being
joining us, and thanks to the former committee members that are here.